This is Things I Found Online, starring Joe Cipriano. Really? He's here?
Yeah.
And Louise Palenker. We're looking at life through the lens of the internet. Join us, won't we? Louise?
Wow. That was so pro.
Yeah, that was semi-professional.
I really want to dance to that.
No idiot.
Our guest is comedian Tom Clark, and filling in for Larry Morgan is Scott Leslie.
Scott Leslie.
Yay.
Hello, Yay.
So Tom's here, and Tom's a very famous comedian
Tom.
with an internet presence.
Strong internet.
Strong.
I built my following.
I've been to your website,
So we're going to Google you, and an interesting thing happens because the results are in. Do you have that link, Thomas? The results
Drum roll,
are in.
please.
Tom, you may or may not be the most famous Tom Clark on the internet.
How dare
We
you?
have.
Well done.
Is there a way to tell?
I mean, theoretically, if Thomas or somebody clicked on the link, if we had gone to rehearsal, yeah.
Oh, there was a rehearsal.
So we have Tom. So there's Tom Clark,
comedian.
Tom Clark,
top.
construction is running a tight race, and Canadian television journalist Tom Clark is also coming up.
Right.
Yeah.
The ones I always get is the Tom Clark popcorn guy. There's a guy who makes popcorn.
Oh, no
Right.
kidding.
And then there's a Tom.
He's a good guy to know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's another Tom Clark who makes figurines, and I often get emails asking about my figurines and what they mean.
He's probably my new favorite Tom Clark.
That's just a funny word.
He makes gnomes. Yeah.
He
makes
It's a niche market. Yeah.
Yeah.
It is.
So now, but I noticed when we Googled Tom Clark, you were up above those other Tom Clarks, at least in terms of on that page.
That's right.
Right.
Suck it, other Tom Clarks.
What do you do to optimize your search results having a very common name?
I guess I'm clueless, but I think it helps that that's TomClark.com. So
Yes.
yeah. So I think
How
See
did you
that?
secure that, little honey?
Well done.
I knew the internet was going to be big.
Wow.
Yep,
And
yep.
Got in early, huh?
I got
You
in
invested early.
Well, my web guy got in early, so he bought my domain like in '99.
Wow.
And yeah, and I didn't even think about it. So,
But you know, why didn't we back then buy things like, I can get Google. I could have bought that. Or Fireplace,
You mean .com?
.com. Yeah. And then you would own it.
There were a lot of people who did that, and
Right.
they're
Right.
still living off of it.
They are.
Yeah,
I know.
because if you
How come
approach
we
them
didn't
and you
think of
say
that?
I'd like
No, what if something we can get
fireplace.com,
Right.
they will say to you, I would like $1 million.
Right, they do.
that's
Yeah.
what I say when people ask about TomClark.com. How much would you?
Yeah.
I've gotten about 3 or 4 people and I say like $50,000.
You know what? I bet that popcorn guy's got some money. I bet
He's
you
got
could
it for
get
it.
you can-
Have you been to meetup.com?
I've had groups come out. They're very awkward.
I used to own
groups.
that
They are
domain.
awkward. They
I
don't know
sold
each
it.
other. But we should have, like, in terms of interests, we should have a Tom Clark meetup.
Okay.
So that if your name's Tom Clark, you just show up at Panera Bread.
All Tom Clarks.
I'm already there.
Ordering will be a nightmare.
Ordering on
You know what?
the Starbucks say Tom Clark.
I bet if you walk into any Panera and scream out Tom Clark, somebody would go, what?
Yeah, so it's a good name. It's just the 2 syllables.
Right.
Then you got it all going on. All
Yeah.
right, so Tom Clark is here, but our first conversation topic is maybe a little controversial.
All right.
So Tom Clark, you're a comedian, correct?
Yes. I have a website that says so.
Yeah.
Have any young ladies ever blogged about their date with you?
No, nothing significant. I
Not
guess
yet.
maybe a status update. Maybe.
Oh, all right. I think
Hopefully
that
good
counts.
things.
That counts.
No.
All right, so we're going to talk about Aziz a little
Yeah.
bit. If you would click on the
Mhm.
original Babe post. So it begins with the headline, I went on a date with Aziz Ansari. It turned into the worst night of my life. Oh, you haven't read this, John? Oh, well, it's,
Really?
yeah.
Yeah.
It's a heck of a ride.
It's a ride, yeah. So, Scott, your thoughts?
Well, I had heard a lot about this going on, but it was all from word of mouth, and it was only until recently I just read the article, and my goodness, it just felt like it was going from bad to worse. Someone had said, "Oh, it was just a bad date," and someone said, "Well, he had done a couple of aggressive things," but the more you read the article, you think, "Oh, it's not going to get worse than this," and then it does. And
Really?
He can't do worse than that. Oh, here it goes, and it's going farther and farther down the rabbit hole.
Yikes.
Um,
I didn't read the article.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. So, Tom?
It's a very oddly written article. It's like they go into the detail. At first, I thought it was like a parody of a news article, but they talk about like she went on this date with Aziz and they ordered wine. She wanted wine. He gave me red. I wanted white. Like those sort of details.
Yeah.
We watched Seinfeld. It was an episode I hadn't seen. Like just these very minute details that were like, is this part of
Is
it?
this
Like
serious?
when does it get to the
Yeah.
So but then there's the salacious details in addition, but there's also these little minute details of like,
Strange.
yeah, I picked out a nice outfit.
Yeah.
My friend said it looked good. Like, so there's these weird little elements in the story.
Well, there's moments where she feels like, oh, this is clearly a date. And then it turns a corner where her inner voice is saying, this is clearly a hookup and I don't want to be here.
right.
But that inner voice doesn't go on to say, so I'll leave.
Yeah.
She stays.
Right. There's
And-
several moments where they stop hooking up, they
Yeah.
watch TV, then he goes back to wanting to hook
But
up
here's
again.
here's the problem. She doesn't put her clothes back on.
Right.
So she apparently thinks that you can sit naked with a probably heterosexual male and have him
Like we are right
focusing
now.
on Netflix.
Right.
Yeah. So I just think it's youngness and also not
Naivete.
not enough communication.
Okay.
Because you feel the pressure on a date. Now, we can add the layer of you're on a date with a celebrity. So am I supposed to just be taking his suggestions and going along with this? Or do I, within the power dynamic, do I get to say, I'm uncomfortable, I'm going to put my clothes on, or maybe I shouldn't have come back to his apartment. So there's so many things to discuss here. Like, what are the expectations on a date?
How long did this transpire? Is this like a one evening?
One
or-
evening, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
But the build-up to it was over the course. They had met. I think it was a
At the
week
Emmy
earlier.
Awards,
Yeah,
yeah.
and had kind of flirted there, exchanged numbers, and
Oh,
then
I
it
did
was
read about
later
that,
after
yeah.
she went back to New York that she went on the date. So they'd been
Oh,
in
okay.
communication for
Huh.
a while there.
She had every reason to believe it was a date. They bonded over a similar camera. There was everything date-like leading up to it. And maybe when he said, do you want to come back to my place? That's when the guy says, oh, I think sex is going to happen. And he has his hopes in that direction. Now, never having been a guy, I don't know at what point you're supposed to read, what she keeps discussing is that he didn't read my body language and he didn't read my intentions. And then the internet kind of slapped back and said, this has taken the Me Too movement too far. He's not a mind reader. And they were this wave of shaming the woman that this happened to. And it's sort of like, are we making up our own minds about things, or are we reacting the way the internet tells us is the appropriate way to react? That's a huge part of this conversation as well.
Wow.
Right. Well, yeah, I think the internet does influence you one way or the other. And it's hard to have a debate about it. I feel like you can't. You're either on the Me Too movement side or you're not. And if you question the article, then you're against it.
Yeah, but this is what happened to Al Franken, and it's not really necessarily fair to say Me Too means any woman who ever felt offended should mean people should lose their livelihoods or be shamed. Let me ask you this question. If Aziz weren't famous and she were writing about a plumber named Stan and that this happened to her.
Don't make me
she
laugh when
picked
you're
out
talking about serious
a
topics.
nice dress for Stan.
Okay.
And they liked the same camera. And they went out and he invited her up to show her some pipes. And then,
Oh, my gosh.
and then this happened. Is it as damning?
I think part of it, though, is that Aziz built his career off being this feminist and being this outspoken person, and how men are being jerks to women and they need to be better. And Master of None focused a lot on women being stalked and that sort of thing, and the stuff they deal with on Tinder and stuff. So I think part of it is his reputation of him trying to portray himself as this feminist, and now this is the story we get. So I think that also plays into it. He built a career off of it.
I get so nervous talking about stuff like this because it's the age-old dance that the guy is always trying to get the girl to kiss him, show him something or progress further. So, I mean, this has been going on forever. And then if a girl or a guy or whoever says no, well, then that's the point when you're supposed to stop. But if she never really said no.
Right, but I think about, like, remember that iconic photo when World War II ended and that guy grabs that
kissing,
woman and kisses her against her will.
Right, just grabbing this girl.
But
celebrating.
Everyone's kind of like, that symbolizes the war ending.
Exactly,
yay.
yeah.
And it's like, but nobody thinks about the women's side of it. I think that's
true.
Sort of what the article is presenting, is that
she had chiropractic issues from that point.
That's a hell of a dip. Yeah.
Can I say that?
Yes.
Yeah.
I talked a lot. I talked to a bunch of my friends from college about it, because I was like, what do you guys think? And a lot of my girlfriends from college, and they were like, this Aziz story is more important than Harvey or Louis C.K. or any of the other ones, because this is 99% of what happens to all girls, especially their age. And I remember them going through stuff in college where it's like the guy is just so aggressive that it's like they don't know how to like stop him.
Yeah.
So I think Aziz goofed up, like he done goofed. He was just like horny and doing what a lot of guys do, but that doesn't make it excusable, you know?
Yeah,
absolutely.
And I think she just kind of, obviously she was feeling a lot of pressure, but she could have tried harder or, made the signals more clear. But in the end, I still think it was his fault for doing what a lot of guys, especially like our generation, there's not a lot of like stories with my friends where they're like, it was a violent rape or anything like that. It's just like this guy is like drunk and he's like, whipped his dick out or whatever, and is like, won't get away from me, won't calm down, like that kind of thing.
I think there's that moment probably for guys where in the dating culture where if she said yes to coming back to your apartment, and if she was okay with you removing her clothing, that your brain and your body and your entire being are going, sex is going to happen.
Right, yeah.
And you're not really hearing anything that indicates sex isn't going to happen. So I think women need to be more clear. If I were speaking to young ladies, I would say, just say, I'm really not comfortable. I'm not there yet, if I can quote Ari from The Bachelor. And I believe he did say that on a recent episode, right before the woman was sent home. Okay. But
I think you have to have a feeling of like that the woman wants to be there with you. I think you can tell as a guy if like a girl's not reciprocating, the passion that you're putting out.
Sure, you should be sensitive to that.
Well, absolutely. If you go over the edge and start forcing, well, then you're way over the line.
And I think it's acceptable and maybe even desirable for the guy to be saying as things progress, is this okay? Are you okay?
Right.
Yeah.
I think communication,
checking in with her.
Communication in all of this, I think, is the major thing. And it is, I got the impression from the article that she was trying to make her voice heard, that I don't want to be doing this, but could she have done more? Maybe, but I also don't think I'm in a place where I could say whether or not she could have.
Right.
But
did she really continue to sit there with her clothes off?
I think yes.
I know he had his clothes off and they watched Seinfeld.
Yeah,
I don't think he remembers the episode.
No.
Doesn't make it any funnier.
It is something that I think we don't communicate enough, especially about situations like this. And I think the one of the important things that is also coming up from this, which is why it's so relatable, is this is a conversation and communication that we need to be having.
Of course.
And this is, with Aziz, it is something that a lot of people can look at and go, I've seen this situation before. Maybe some people saying I've been in this situation before. And now having that open communication about it, I think, is what makes it so important.
And I think what Thomas is saying is that, a lot of young ladies can really relate to this. And that brings up what I'm about to say, which is there was an interesting blog post by Eliza Skinner on Tumblr, and she wrote, the picture painted, first of all, she just trashes the article. She's it's like an unholy piece of crap, but that's in her opinion. And she goes on to say, the picture painted is so confusing and threadbare, everyone is parsing it through the lens of their own experiences. Aziz did issue a statement, and he said something to the effect of, he thought the encounter was completely consensual. He reached out to her personally after he saw the blog, and he continues to support the Me Too movement.
Right.
So I think they're both probably pretty confused by the internet's reaction. And
Right.
I mean,
well, I think it's sort of like with James Franco. It's like with the acting class that he was teaching. It's like you do hold a position of power, and especially in LA with everyone so desperate to make it, that you sort of have to understand that these people look up to you. They see it, they see you as like godlike. So you do have to be a little more aware of what you're doing than a plumber, Stan the plumber, Do
you want to bring Bill into this conversation?
Bill?
Hello.
Bill is zooming in from Nashville on the Zoom software. And can you guys see Bill? He's wearing a beanie.
I see Bill.
Beanie Bill.
Yeah.
So you're raising young ladies.
I am. It's interesting listening to this conversation because there are so many mixed thoughts flying through my head at the same time. And what I'm always telling my older daughters is to just not get in. You don't know what's going to happen when you get into those situations. So don't get into those situations.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Why it's that whole adage of nothing really good happens after 2 a.m.
I always said midnight, but 2 a.m. See, it's
well,
later.
Nashville's 2 hours time difference.
See, my kids are a little older than yours, so for me it was midnight, and now I see in 2018 it's 2 a.m.
Well, it's 2 a.m. Central.
Oh,
so
that's true. Well, then I'm okay.
Right.
I'm still in.
About the same thing. But no, it's difficult trying to, how do you? And now with my son at 12, you're starting to think about that. It is a lot of it is communication, but we do not communicate the same. I think that's pretty obvious. Men and women do not communicate the same, especially when they're younger. They're coming from two different directions. It's really hard to coach them on how do you approach this, and take it slow, and do not plan on setting yourself up for failure, so to speak.
Right.
You don't know how the guy is going to react either. And once there is a point where you will lose complete control of the situation.
Yeah, and that point, once that point happens, it takes off like a rocket. And I would say that point
does, and you can lose control really.
Yeah, that point is when you're making out and you're both naked. So
that's it.
You could point to
as a father, I just freaked out when you just said that.
Well, they were both naked and sex didn't happen, which makes Z's a hero to a certain extent, because I just think that's
except to Bob the plumber. I don't know what
the plumber's name is Stan.
Stan, I'm sorry.
I don't really think he's a hero though. Like I feel like maybe it's just my generation, but I feel like even if you're like you could be like right before like penetration or whatever, and like if she says no, then it's like whoosh.
Yeah.
And you've been raised well, Thomas.
Yes.
That's exactly the correct answer.
I think there is a philosophy,
Done.
especially being around comedians too. It's like, well, she came back to my hotel room, so something was supposed to happen. It's like, no, that's not.
Yeah, that's just bad. That's just
people
old.
change their mind, and that doesn't suddenly. It's not international waters all of a sudden, and you're like, she's in the room.
Yeah.
So I think it is a mentality. I think of Daniel Tosh's joke, which is. No doesn't mean no. It means work the neck and the nipples and come back in 20 minutes. Like,
oh, Lord.
I mean, but I think there is that mentality among guys. I think people are like, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And I think you just have to have self-control.
Yeah, it's almost like the guys and girls receive different playbooks.
Yeah.
Right.
And they don't always match up.
And they're in the ring together, and they're both playing a completely
It's like, wait a minute.
different.
I'm on page 12. What are you on?
Yeah.
I don't even have a page 12.
Right.
So I guess we can thank the internet to a certain extent for raising this. I don't know if your friends felt like, I'm really happy that this blog post was released.
They were ecstatic. I originally got into an argument with them, and because I was like, I think the article is poorly written. And I think it
we
is.
can all conclude.
Yeah,
Yes.
but they were like, "What? Like you support like Aziz?" And I was like, "Hold up."
No, wait a minute.
Talking
about how it's written.
Like relax. I was like, I think they wrote like Babe. I was like, I don't think they were the right people to write it. I think they were just happy to get that material and be like, oh, we got to get this out there now because everyone's gonna look at it.
Yeah.
And speaking from somebody with a .com, TomClark.com, and
yes.
babe.net. Come on.
Please.
Yeah.
I mean, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think the other problem with that article was Ashley Bamfield from CNN had commented on it and said how, like, this woman had set back the Me Too movement. And then Babe.net fired back and they commented on her like peroxide hair and she's over 50. And it was like, well, now you're just attacking another woman, and she attacked a woman, and now how is this solving anything?
It does get really muddy though, because everybody has an agenda or a history, and anytime you read anything, that's a relationship between you and the words you're reading, and it's based on your history and your past and what those words mean to you. So then you might type something that might fire off something in someone else that you had no idea it was going to ignite. Right. And so when you have this kind of like massive pile up of thoughts, it can leave everybody just feeling confused or lost or unheard or unsupported. Right. And completely miss the point of what we were trying to say in the first place.
And when it's being done online and all the thoughts just pile on top of each other so quickly, everything can get lost in an instant.
Exactly.
I think
really
one thing I've heard too is that people don't want to. People want to win or lose. Nobody wants to compromise. You want to be the winner or you're the loser, and there's no dialogue. And that's like liberal, conservative, like there's no dialogue.
Yeah, it's like a zero-sum game instead of a conversation.
Yeah, and we're losing that for sure with the internet, I think.
Yeah, so I
have a question, though.
Yes, Bill.
Go.
Even if, let's just say it's two people in an office, you can sense when somebody's uncomfortable. And I would think that, and I will work my hardest to teach all of my children, including my son, if you're picking up on a discomfort and somebody is really, when things are going really well, when the pace is picking up and it feels right from both of you. And you also can kind of pick up when somebody's shouldn't we be able to be more sensitive to that?
That's a good point. Yeah, because we took the same seminar. Am I right, Bill? And it had to do
your
with
workplace.
Wanted and unwanted advances. Of course, we snickered all the way through it because it was the 90s and we didn't know the hashtag Me Too.
Right.
But and the actors were funny, so when they would come on too strong in the copy room, it was just funny.
But you can tell on it. You can tell on a date, even at dinner, if things are going well, and you can tell if you're comfortable with each other or not. I see both sides of it. It really is an interesting. I think there needs to be more sensitivity training from both sides and learning how to communicate. The whole men are from Mars, women are from Venus thing, I think, holds very true. And
it all comes down to just having respect for one another. I think
you.
Really,
yes.
Right.
Yeah.
But is it old-fashioned of me to just say, "Yeah"? Is it Did you want to say something, Dina? Go over towards Joe.
Come on over here.
Come join.
Or you can sit right there next to Tom.
Oh, there you go.
Is it old-fashioned of me to say to young women, if you don't want to have sex, probably the date ends at the door? Is that just old-fashioned?
Yeah, I think it was just. But reading the article, what led up to it was that he puts her on the counter and starts making out with her, and then immediately goes down on her.
Right.
Within the way it made it sound like within 2 minutes. So that's a little bit like, whoa,
this escalated really quick.
Yeah,
and I think that's
not your next move. That's like first to home.
Right.
Yeah. So
ran across the pitcher's mound. Yeah.
Right.
Dina, what you got?
So I just want to say something about the Me Too movement. I hate this idea that the Me Too, like the hashtag and the movement, is like this concrete thing. And there's like a standard of like assault that like if you're not allowed to like tell your story or talk about it unless like you're certain that you've like met this standard of, okay, like I was definitely assaulted. I think the movement should be a conversation and like a constant dialogue. And that's why the whole like who's right and who's wrong, that's like the absolute worst thing that could happen to Me Too, because it has to be like, it's a constantly evolving thing. Like it's evolved since it started, and it has to be seen as like a living organism and not just like, who are you? That's to tell somebody that they're not allowed to speak about their experience because, well, some people won't consider that like a real assault. That seems to me very
It's as if
unproductive.
People don't understand that one person's pain doesn't diminish another person's.
Exactly.
It all builds up, but if someone has a bad experience and someone else also has a different bad experience, that first bad experience still happened, and it doesn't disappear because someone else also had something.
But it seemed like one of the initial waves or the initial ripples that was caused by the publishing of this article was the internet rising up and saying, you've just date-shamed Aziz, and we don't think it was fair because we don't think what happened to you rises to the level of sexual assault. We think that demeans people that were actually raped, and and the conversation just gets out of control really quickly. Like if we were a town square, there'd be rocks thrown.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Rush to judgment.
Yeah,
two different people will have a completely different take on the situation too.
The same
two different
situation.
Women would, if to one, that entire episode she would handle completely differently based on her own experiences and background and her own personality and character, and another one might react another way. So it's to open it up this much. It's impossible to really know how you would handle a situation like that until you're in it.
Right. And what about the
judge on the outside is tough.
Another important detail is that her real name is not used, and yet she uses Aziz's real name.
Yeah.
Right.
So, like I said, if it were Stan the plumber, if she just said this guy that I went out with, rather than Aziz, who's known for being, the Phil Donahue of his age. That dates me. You're welcome, ladies. Aware and sensitive.
Right.
And so that, that scars him. And maybe fairly, Thomas thinks, I'm a young man. I wouldn't get myself into that situation. I wouldn't behave that way. And so it's only men can really judge, I guess, how Aziz conducted himself on that date. For me, I'm looking at it from the female perspective, which is I wouldn't have gone up to his apartment. So it's really
you wouldn't
easy,
have gotten in that situation in the first place.
To look at it and say, well, I wouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
Therefore, they're both wrong. And I get what Dean is saying. We should be talking about this stuff because it is really, really tricky and complicated, and every date is different and every person is different. And it needs to be a conversation.
So how does this help anybody? Because everything is so different. Then, okay, what do you do? If you're a woman and you're in that situation, do you let's not get into that situation. Don't go in the door.
Or you can say what Ari said on The Bachelor. I'm not there yet.
I'm not there yet.
Yeah.
Well, I think what Thomas was saying about how, Aziz considered himself, or he maybe still does, a very strong supporter of women and of a male feminist. These guys who consider themselves like woke feminists, they're not always aware that what they're doing is that just because you have a certain belief doesn't mean that you're somehow allowed to make mistakes that otherwise would be punishable. So that's why the dialogue is so important, because like what Eliza Skinner was saying in her post, that like the babe thing was basically clickbait. And that's what we all have to recognize is don't engage with clickbait.
Right.
Let's have a real discussion about this where we can all calmly address what is happening.
Yeah, and the other part of it is just don't let the wave of the internet tell you what your opinion is.
Right, yeah.
Absolutely. Take the time to do the research and to see as many sides as possible and be informed. I think that's the important thing. Be informed so that you can make your own decisions. It's just getting informed on the internet can be incredibly tricky.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So let's move on to...
I was going to close real quickly and just say that I think for guys... And Aziz, I'm hoping he looks at all of this and maybe he learns something. And men in general, the more that we hear all of these different stories and all these different perspectives, that we can, as especially the young men entering the dating scene, can learn something from this and gain a new perspective that they otherwise would not have had an opportunity to see.
Yeah.
Well said. All right. So we have Joe. I know that you just sort of pop in from your excursions, but while you were out,
I have no idea where we're going now.
While you were out, we developed
away.
A couple of new features. One is called "What's Trending."
Yeah, what's trending? I've heard about that.
I should have typed that in my script with a question mark, but I didn't.
What's trending?
So, do you have the attachment that says "Stupid Things Couples Fight About"? So this was trending. Yeah. This was trending. Does anyone
where to go to dinner?
Yeah.
Okay.
So John, can you read some of these? Some of these are pretty good.
Oh my God! So I think where to go to dinner is up there.
It probably is.
It absolutely is.
I got to put my glasses on.
Did you post that one?
Oh, Louise.
We're zooming in and out.
When did you get here, Louise?
Oh yeah.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah. So Cassidy is the first one.
So Cassidy says, what to watch on Netflix then after 37 minutes of this, falling asleep during opening credits of whatever was agreed upon.
The thing that we were talking about 6 months ago. Yeah, that'll do it.
The pronunciation of GIF.
GIF.
I believe the G is silent.
I think along with the Netflix thing is like when you're watching a show together and you have different schedules and skipping ahead.
Yes. You're right. That's a big one. That's
second.
a real one.
Yeah.
You saw episode 4 and didn't wait for me?
And then pretending you didn't see it. Like, oh, this should be good. Wait. This is good.
Right. Okay.
How do you know? Yeah.
And then the last one was from Baker's Old Treehouse, and it says, "Who wears the pants? I checked with the wife before posting this. She said it was okay." So be on the lookout for things that are trending on Twitter that you think are funny, interesting, or you don't know what the heck that means. And usually if I have no idea what it means, I click on it and it has to do with sports. So that's where my head is. And the other new feature, Joe, that you're going to enjoy is called Feed Time.
Feed Time.
And that's where if you find something in your Facebook feed worth sharing or mentioning, please bring it up. I found this post from Sly Rose. He writes, "Not only does the neighbor's rooster wake us up every day, we are not fans, and crow all day long, now he has shat on the front porch and is making himself at home."
Oh, jeez.
So there's pictures of the rooster and the shat.
Where is he living?
I'm not sure.
Right.
I'm not sure.
Wait, is it on fire? It looks like it's on fire.
Flaming shat.
The idea of having a rooster in the neighborhood is always so romanticized until it actually happens.
Until you have one. Exactly. Yes.
Yeah, I'm not sure where he lives, but he kept. I love how we're all our own journalists, like embedded, in our home. Like, oh, it's going on. Click, click, post, boom, rooster. I owned you. So
absolutely.
And then we have things we found online. So we have found some things online. I don't know if you guys knew, you guys that are in the entertainment industry, that Spike TV is on its way.
They were promoting the hell out of that starting in December, that Spike TV was changing to Paramount TV.
Right, and I don't know what that is going to mean in terms of programming. But those in the social media department at Spike TV are
the social media manager
going out in a blaze of glory.
Down
he went
the house.
nuts, or they went nuts. Yeah.
So, do you have that attachment?
Yeah, he or she or they.
Can you read some of these, John?
Let's see.
This is Spike TV's Twitter.
Spike TV Twitter. It says, "I clogged up the 4th stall in the 7th floor men's room over 30 times last year."
Oh, wow. This is like Cab Confession. Was that a show on Spike TV?
"I lost my virginity in one of the storage spaces from auction hunters." Wow.
This is Shat Confessions.
Yeah.
"I was extremely disappointed when Stripperella had no nudity. I aired that show solely based off the name and the potential for frontal."
Now, that's a screen cap. If you went to Spike TV's Twitter, you'd probably find more of the same today, because that was captured yesterday.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so it's all going on. I kind of think it's consensual. Like, they know. Like, those at Spike TV said, yeah, go for it.
Oh, I think so.
So the one guy at the media going, "Well, we're doing this. We're going to go out with fun."
Yeah, because we did that when Kiss AM was on its way out.
Oh, we did. We threw out the format.
That mother down.
Yes, we did. AM radio stations are supposed to lower their power at night. And then on the last night of Kiss AM, I was on the air, Weeze was there, and I said, F this, and we threw the power up to 100%. So we were actually reaching the valley that evening.
Yeah.
And we played whatever the hell we wanted to play.
We were reaching the valley. People in the valley were like, what is this? And we were playing anything we wanted to, right?
Yeah.
And
we invited all the jocks and friends into the studio and ordered pizzas.
We probably did Battle of the Old Jokes.
We did that.
Yeah.
We tried to get free pizza by, doing, say, any pizza company that comes up with a pizza, we'll mention your name on the air. You just have to give us free pizza.
That is the worst when you do a promotion and no one
shows up. You know what? At Kiss AM, we had no listeners at night, so you would do a contest where you're giving away concert tickets to Bon Jovi or something to the 15th caller, and it would be the caller who wins at 15 was also caller 2, caller 7, caller. I mean, it's like, really?
I knew it.
Oh my God!
You just have to want
it.
Right.
Yeah.
But did you get pizza? Is my question. Did you get any?
We
pizza?
did get pizza. Yes, we did. We remember the guy that came in. And at the time, this was in the 90s, and I think there was beer and wine spritzers. I'm afraid.
Hey, you
to
know,
say.
That's an
you know
amazing
who we
delivery.
Yes.
You know who we need to get on the show if you're watching at home is Bumpy. We need to get Bumpy.
Bumpy
over
Woods.
here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because he's going to remember everything. Like,
Yeah, Bump's
that
good.
guy's going to have a memory like he's going to remember things that you and I don't remember.
Yep.
I
So
want to buy bumpywoods.com. I want to get
Bumpy's real name is Ken Morgan,
Ken
but
Morgan.
he somehow came up with the most magical radio name,
Yeah.
yeah.
Bumpy Woods. Yeah.
Bumpy Woods.
Do we know the
So-
origin to that?
Yes. Well, I don't know, but I know that there is an origin. There
Really?
was a character named Bumpy.
Okay.
And that's where Ken got it from. But I
Oh.
don't know what the. I'm looking up whether there's bumpywoods.com.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's probably
Bang
like
that
some
up now.
lovely park in Montana. Bumpy
Right next to
With
Babbling
a lot
Brook.
of- with a gopher problem.
Oh, gosh. Alrighty.
All right, so I commute every weekend to Santa Barbara, and we've had some
It's been
really,
rough
really
up there.
tragic
Oh, my God.
My
mudslides.
gosh.
And,
The thing is, first first we had all the rains, right?
Yeah.
And then all the vegetation grew. And then you had the fires that threatened and, destroyed so many.
Mm-hmm.
People had to evacuate from that. And finally you get back from that. And because of the fires, then it rains and there's nothing to stop the water from coming down.
Mm-hmm.
And then you flood. There were people that were taken out by helicopter for the fires. And then a few weeks later, taken out for the floods.
Oh, my God.
Which is unbelievable.
there were a lot of helicopter rescues.
Rescues, yeah.
And Montecito is still a ghost town. You can't go there.
Unbelievable.
But in order to get there, the freeway has been shut down. So I was taking the train,
Okay.
and which
That's fun, isn't it?
No,
No.
It's always an adventure.
Wrong.
No,
I thought that would be fun.
it would be if the train arrived when, say, your ticket said it was going to. But it's not an airport where there's
See,
seats.
in Italy, Mussolini they could say that the
trains-
trains ran on time at
Okay,
least.
you
Yeah.
could set your watch by him,
Yes.
right? Well, at the train station, you're just standing on a platform,
Yeah.
getting alerts on your phone telling you that the train has been delayed. So you're just standing there with all your stuff, and yeah. So
Why is it being delayed? Is it related to the problems, the floods? And
Well, there was a very chatty engineer last night, or conductor. I'm not sure what his title is.
on the microphone while you were riding?
No, just in person.
Ladies and gentlemen,
The problem is the engineer's wandering around the train. Shouldn't you be
came over-
driving
wait
this
a minute.
thing?
Shouldn't you be up front?
He
just
came
got a
over and
vent.
he showed me on his device how many people were getting off and how many people were getting on at all the different stops. It was
Really?
it was nighttime and we were bonding. But he told me that they had added a certain number of cars per train and then a certain number of trains to the schedule, and according to this conductor, they added a train at exactly the wrong time because it made it so that other trains had to stop and let it, because around Santa Barbara, there's not a lot of land. It's mountain and then sea.
Yeah.
So that you have to stop and let a train go by. And he kept making the point that wasn't I happy that he didn't kill me, because he knew that I was, that all passengers were a little irritated by this point, but he kept, saying if I had let that many people on the train, we'd all be dead. So
I
Wow.
think that's a pretty low place to start for Aren't You Happy?
Right.
it is. It's a low bar, and yet we did all survive. But the song that kept running across my mind was "I've been working on the railroad."
I've been
And the
working
thing-
on the railroad.
That's right. And the thing that I've always really admired about the song for a simple children's song is like there's 4 different movements.
Wow.
Really?
And so, yeah, because
I didn't realize that.
I just
because
knew the
most
one.
songs are just for children are
They're
just
working
very
on it, yeah.
simple, but this one has
All the livelong day.
the Dinah part,
Oh,
and
yeah.
then Fee Fi Fiddly I-O. It's like Beethoven.
Wow.
This thing. So I looked online because as a kid you're like, well, who's Dinah? And why is she
Why is
blowing
she
a
in the
horn?
kitchen?
If she's
Yeah.
in the kitchen, there's
Yeah.
a horn in the kitchen. Does that summon everybody to the kitchen? Are they upset because it's dinner time and she's being distracted by a guy with a banjo so she can't cook because the horn is blocking her spatula? Like, what's happening?
This is an amazing story. I'm
Yeah,
very intrigued.
I know.
So I looked it up.
Yes.
Turns out there's a shameful history.
Oh,
don't know if I
no,
Yeah,
really?
The dark history of I've been working on the
Ay,
railroad.
ay,
Here it
ay.
is. You have that link. So
Oh, my
apparently it's racist and
Well,
whatever's going on in the kitchen is
uh-oh.
probably going to be date shamed
Yeah.
at some point because
The dark history
yeah.
of I've been working on the railroad.
so
I want to see the guy who pitched that story. I've got a hot tip.
Right.
And it's like a lot of songs from this time period. It's like, oh, you just know the first verse. The second verse is really racist.
Yeah.
That's why we don't sing.
Yeah,
it
that's
anymore.
why we don't sing that part. So that's interesting. Although a lot of people feel like it was different songs combined. That maybe the songwriter didn't really write all those movements. It was just different songs that got kind of combined. But I still think it's a good song. And
But it made you, while you were on the train, you thought of that song.
I thought of it all the live long day.
Yeah, there you go.
I hope nobody discovers something about 100 bottles of beer on the wall or something like the tragic history of 100 bottles.
For every bottle, there's a soul lost. And
It really gets bad around 58 bottles.
Yeah, there's
beer.
a dead body in every bottle.
Yeah, oh my God.
You don't want to know.
No.
Yeah.
around 70, we don't remember the lyrics at that point. It's all just black.
And then we have you guys heard about the Amazon Go store?
The ghost store.
I just heard about it in
Yeah.
Seattle, right?
So do you guys know that I think that
Tell a little bit for people that don't know.
I think Jeff Bezos
Yeah.
bought up all of the Whole Foodses.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, they bought all Whole
Right.
Foods, yeah.
And like what a lot of people don't maybe realize is that like the whole idea is it's going to put all Checkers out of business because the Amazon Go store is going to be kind of like a giant mini mart.
Okay.
You basically put things in your basket and leave.
Yeah, and how does it track as you walk out the door with
All right. So do you
item?
have the rules? So yeah. Let's see.
It's a white screen. No,
it was the other one. It's the attachment.
Amazon Go.
It's a screen cap of the attachment. Yeah. So if you zoom in on that, you can, Thomas, or John, you can sort of tell us how it's going to work. So you're going to have like an app on your phone.
Yeah.
And as you go
Oh,
in,
I see. Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's going to ding you in. And then from that point forward, you really just pick out things, put them in your basket, and leave.
Wow. That's cool.
So ironically, there's a line.
Takes the fun out of shoplifting, doesn't it?
Yeah, it looks like it's all through
I'm
like
just
an
going to
app.
take this.
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
don't have to talk to anybody.
Or
thank
you
God.
thought you shoplifted, and then you get home and you realize, oh, shit, I got charged for all of
Yeah,
it.
Hundreds of
exactly.
cameras
Statement
hanging
going
from the
Darn,
ceiling.
it's not right.
Ugh.
So yeah. So ironically, I think the first one is opening where in that link that I sent you. The first one is opening probably in Seattle, isn't
I
it?
don't
I would
see-
think
I don't
it's
know if
probably
That's where
everything
things
happens in Seattle.
Initially
It might be in
happened.
the other link, but I don't see it on the.
No, you just had clicked on it. That was it.
You know,
Yeah,
The
I don't
picture of
see-
people waiting in line.
Mommy
maybe
and
it's a
Daddy,
screen cap.
stop arguing.
Yeah. Sorry, kids. we don't love you any less.
That's right. It's not my fault.
Well, that's what they're trying
That
to
you
do is
reckon.
phase out
I think
everybody.
it's a screen cap
True.
that showed
Grocery
people
store clerks and
Yeah.
It's a
bankers.
screen cap.
Bank clerks.
So does this mean that in the future you're going to go out and actually never have to talk to another human being ever again? Is that where
Getting
this
there.
is going?
Yeah.
It's getting
You will
there.
leave your house and just be surrounded by an array of items that are in eye-catching displays,
Well, that's
enticing
got to
you.
carry over to dating. It'll be like just sex
Ye-
robots, and it'll just be a.
Yeah. So there's a line outside the Amazon Go store.
Yeah.
I think that's just because of the newness of it, or maybe they only want a certain number of people in there at a time. But I think eventually we're leading towards, and they're just sort of leading us like sheep towards obsolescence or jobs being obsolete, because they had kind of at the thrifty store that you can check yourself out if you're feeling bold and brave, which I usually never am.
You could
But-
check yourself out at the grocery store unless you have a bottle of wine.
Oh, is that it?
It's like, and then all
Yeah.
the bells and whistles go off. And I'm sorry, ma'am, you have to go through the regular checkout. Yeah.
So we
So-
can judge you. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
So is the Amazon Go store going to have wine or?
I don't
They'll
know.
probably have like one guy there, like some poor bastard who has to like run the whole place.
Right.
And
Maybe.
like, yeah.
Sitting in the back going, why?
But
am
I have a
even here?
question.
Okay.
What if you have a question? What if you need some questions answered at an Amazon store? What?
Maybe you do it through the app.
Yeah,
There'll
there's
be
an
a
app for that.
concierge.
Yes.
It's like a mini bar that you live in.
I'm
You just
watching this
move-
video and it's interesting to me that all these people are going into a store where they don't have to communicate with anybody, but they're all talking to each other in line.
Well, thank
right.
God.
Well,
They're-
it's just
they're
you
saying
understand
this
you have
app
to stand in
sucks.
line, so what's the point?
My app's not working. How about you?
Nope,
Right.
nothing.
Well, I don't know about you, Bill, but I do find it appealing. I get that Jeff Bezos owns me. I know he knows more about me than
But
my
you know-
mom does, but I do find it appealing that I could go to a store, be surrounded by items, read the packaging without having to click on different pictures that turn it slowly,
right?
And then put it in my basket and leave the store.
Because I'm thinking, why even get out of your chair and go to the store? You can still do it at home and do the same thing.
There's something about
yeah, exactly.
The three-dimensionalness of that you can't see. Your screen, your computer screen or your phone is still just one flat thing.
You want to hold it. It's like people who read off of screens and devices or want to read out of a book.
Yeah, I mean, I don't need to go to the library and have someone read me a book, but I would probably go to the market more often if I knew I didn't. I'd hate that line, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
I like talking to the cashiers.
If they could do this for car dealerships, it would be outstanding.
Well, that would be good.
Goodness, yes.
Then you don't have to deal with any of that. Yeah.
Let me go check with my manager.
Find the car I want and leave.
But then you have to negotiate with a computer, and at that point, you know you're not going to win.
No, that's true.
I like going through the line with the people, like the cashier. I feel like it's easier than like Wheezy. You prefer to self-checkout?
No, I don't want to self-checkout. That's why I like the idea. I put things in my bag,
yeah,
and then I leave the store. That's what the Amazon store is going to be. Right. It's going to be nobody. The only thing you do is show people your barcode when you walk in.
Probably even show you just do it on a scan.
The thing, if you go back to the screen cap, one of those little instructions is that there's cameras
everywhere
in the store that are watching what everybody buys.
Wait a minute, there's cameras everywhere in here.
Being watched.
Wait, can I buy things here?
And I will know if you leave with
that.
That
sounds like the next Amazon Prime original.
You just leave.
It's like footage from the Amazon Go store.
Yeah, you don't check out. You just put the things you want in your bag
and as you walk out,
leave.
It
and it's going to
registers.
Yeah, and people with no self-control. Because there's no checkpoint.
Dangerous.
It's like, I just drove my car off a cliff and I'm flying. And then,
is this kind of a generational thing? In like
Maybe.
older people like us, we're more used to communicating and talking to people face to face.
I want to talk to someone.
The younger generation prefers to text and not really.
No, not. I don't think so at all.
Yeah,
I have no problem with people or lines or like any of the. I like to shop. Like I love shopping, and if that means like I need to stand in a line for a bit, like I'm okay with that.
I think people may talk more if they know that they can just leave. That they don't have to go through that whole...
There's not that daunting weight of, I got to go through checkout and that's going to take forever.
Yeah. So, for example, like this experience that I had taking the train for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
There was no reading on the train. Everybody wanted to talk because we were sharing an experience.
Ah, interesting.
Mm-hmm. So I talked way more with people on the train than I ever do on a plane. And because it was like, there was immediately something to talk about. Where are you getting off? How do you usually go? What's happening? Like we're in this together.
We're in this together. Yes.
Yeah. Right. So once you've entered the realm of the Amazon Go store, you're going to be like, help me. You know,
how do I do this? Oh, let me help you.
I hope their slogan is Amazon, you'll never check out again. I hope that's their slogan. Just put the fear of the world in.
But I do think it will catch on, and I do think it's part of the automation of our society. That's
right,
really
and it's been
what
going
is taking
on
the
for
jobs.
years and years and years as jobs go down.
But there could be an expert
because of technology
who sits behind a desk and helps you if you have a question about how much butterscotch is in this candy.
Huh.
Well, it says butterscotch, so I assume a lot.
What's the percentage?
What's the percentage?
It's a symbol of you getting older is the fact that you're purchasing butterscotch.
I have to have butterscotch candies in my purse.
My purse is running empty on butterscotch.
All right, Tom Clark.
Oh, Tom Clark.
Tom Clark. Do you want to Google Tom Clark? We should play YouTube roulette with Tom Clark.
Yes,
geez.
I've
Let's
watched
see
a
what
whole
we
bunch
get.
of Tom's
Did
videos.
you? Isn't
oh
he
yeah,
good?
yeah.
You know, I know he's just sitting on a couch right now, but he's actually
He's really,
a very
really
physical
funny.
performer.
Yes.
So let's Google Tom Clark.
I have a question, but I'm going to wait until if we're going to see a couple of videos or because I do have. I have a question for Tom. Which I will address to him
Go to his
after these
website?
videos.
Yeah,
Is
just
it
go to
YouTube roulette?
YouTube and then Tom Clark. Or on your website, do you have any videos that are good?
Oh yeah,
yeah.
go down below. I've been there. Or click on videos.
That's Tom right there.
There we go.
Oh.
There's one with Conan right there, the second one.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if
Conan's
we can play
pointing
that.
at your
Can
belly.
you play that? Actually, this is what I wanted to ask.
It's
Go
like-
ahead.
Oh, we're gonna get arrested. For...
Yeah, can you play this?
No, we
If-
should have picked something.
All right.
That's premium. Keep going
Pick
down.
something
right
that's
there.
like more you recorded at a club so that Conan doesn't come over and hurt
Right.
me.
Oh, I mean that's
he's on his way
That's
already.
our web series, The Clarks.
Oh, the Clarks. You have a web series.
I saw
Yeah.
the zombie girl. I
You
thought
like that one?
I thought
Okay.
that was hilarious.
Yeah.
But no, is there one of you doing stand-up?
Yeah, I guess the one above.
Right there? That one?
No, keep going up.
Oh, that's Comedy Central.
That one.
There, that one.
That's just like a 10-minute
That's
set.
his 10-minute set.
TomClark.com.
Tom Clark, nice set.
So anyone celebrating a birthday? Anyone's birthday today? That guy looked right at you, buddy. Is it your birthday? Well, then celebrate it, my friend. Come on. What's your name? Ammon. No, I think he spelled it wrong. A-M-A-N? A-M-M-O-N.
Oh, you're kidding.
This is Provo, Utah, by the way.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Ammon. All right.
You got nothing.
Good luck to you. You ever do this? You ever let somebody call you the wrong name? Yeah, because you just don't feel like correcting them. Like 6 months later, you finally tell me, like, no, my name isn't John, it's Tom. Like, why didn't you tell me that in the beginning? Yeah, I wasn't planning on knowing you. That's good. And how old are you, Ammon? 17. Oh, 17. Congratulations.
How do you get in?
It's the,
good
I don't
one.
know what that is. 17. Is your parents?
Dry bar comedy.
You got cool parents taking you out on the town, huh? Or the lamest kid ever. I don't know. Getting around Ammon. Ammon eggs. You ever do that? Never done Ammon eggs. It'd be funny if that was your brother's name. Eggs. Ammon eggs. Bacon. Get down here. Side of toast.
There's that many kids in most Utah families.
This is your dad? What's your name, sir? Tom. Okay, so you were like, let's mess with Ammon. How about Ammon? I don't care. Not my name. I'm Tom. Who cares? Yeah, Ammon. I love it. Ammon, you're a cool kid. You seem like a cool, confident kid. Way better than me. No, I used to lie about my age, But the problem with lying about your age is that eventually you have to do math, right? Because people be like, how old are you? 31. What year did you graduate high school? Yeah, I didn't go. I was homeschooled. Did not go. Are you giving it up for homeschooling?
It is Utah.
Yes. We got the homeschool table over here. Oh, boy. Class president, what's up? Prom queen. Homeschool table. Ammon, eventually, that'll be you. Are you a good student, Ammon? You do well? How are you in math? You're good at. I was terrible at math, and I'll tell you what gave me the biggest problem growing up: multiplication. So here's what I would do. With multiplication, I would associate the numbers with things that I knew. So take the problem like 7 times 7. I would think 7 castaways on Gilligan's Island. Who was the star of Gilligan's Island? Bob Denver. Denver's in Colorado. When you think of Colorado, what do you think of? Mountains. Mountains in Spanish is montañas, which is spelled the same as Montana. Who's the most famous Montana? Joe Montana, who played for?
49ers.
Wow.
49ers.
Long way to go for a joke.
You have too
Long way
much
to
time
go.
to think.
I do.
So, Tom, that was a really good example of you incorporating crowd work then back into your act. Is that something you worked at, or does it just come naturally with a lot of stage time?
I was doing stand-up and improv at the same time. I did comedy sports back in Milwaukee, and I do it out here in L.A., So, when I started out, I used to perform at this place called the Safe House in Milwaukee, and there'd be no people. People would it was like a spy motif bar. So people would kind of like go to these different areas of the bar and watch. So I had to literally go on stage in front of no people.
Oh my God.
And just start performing. And the only way I could draw a crowd in was just to start engaging them in conversation.
Yeah. Amen.
And that was it. So yeah, I think, and I love doing it because it's like, you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's good. Sometimes it's bad.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's the kind of thing where the more you do it, the better you get at it.
Right. Yeah. And I treat it more like I never get mad at an audience member. I mean, sometimes you get mad at audience members, but for the most part, I try to treat them like
you people aren't giving me good material.
Right.
Come on.
That's a stupid answer. Yeah.
Have funnier names.
Come on.
But I think you treat them like a scene partner, almost like you do in improv.
Yeah,
where it's
yeah.
like they're sort of
Yes and.
yeah, yes and you yes and
Right.
whatever they give you, and I always make myself the butt of the joke as opposed to making them look bad. That way they feel
That's nice.
and then
That's actually good.
and then
Yeah.
I really pounce on it.
In the parking lot,
They
you get
least
them.
expect it.
The thing I wanted to ask you is you were on Conan O'Brien, which is really cool, and you
Right.
see this all the time when you get a comedian that's on any show, like on the old Carson show or whatever, and it's if you get pulled over to the couch,
Right.
that was one thing. But at the end of the one that I saw, Conan came out to you,
Right.
and shook your hand, and then the mic goes off, and then it's like. What the hell was he saying to you? I
on
want to
over,
know what Conan is
Tom,
saying.
We're having casserole.
Right.
I've saved a
Is he saying that was a hell of a set, or I
Right.
would have brought you over to the desk, but we ran out of time, or
They say like Illuminati meeting, 2:00 Thursday. You're welcome aboard.
chemtrails?
Yeah. No, it's mostly like a good job, very funny, very clever, and then I remember when I did Craig Kilborn. That was
Yeah.
like the first one I ever did, and he shook my hand and he's like, "You're from Minnesota, or you're from Wisconsin, Minnesota." I was like, "Oh, cool." And by the time I turned away, he was gone.
he was gone, and
ghosted
you were
you.
about to.
And literally, I walked backstage and he's washing his hands, like furiously after shaking my hand.
your hand.
Wow.
I was like, yeah,
Wisconsin, eh?
Yeah.
Maybe he was just going into surgery.
maybe it's who knows what
Wow.
Craig does.
So
after.
that it's just kind of a thing that happened. Nothing really substantial is said. You know,
Right.
it's always always wondered about that when they're sitting at the couch and they say, "Okay, we're going to be right back after this," and then immediately go, "What the hell are they saying?"
I think they're literally sometimes just getting
That's okay.
Peas and carrots.
All right,
peas and carrots.
Peas and
Right.
carrots.
So we should have everybody on the show. We should have one week where everyone's been on with Johnny, and they can tell us,
Oh,
what
okay.
if Johnny leaned over and said
Oh, wow.
anything.
Right.
You
That'd
know,
be cool.
or guest host Joan
Yeah.
Rivers.
Guess those Joan
Because
Rivers.
I would imagine that the women would. I mean, women wouldn't pretend to talk. We just talk.
Yeah, yeah.
Bill,
Oh.
you there?
I am there. I had a question for Tom. I'm looking at his website and I see a lot of private gigs.
Oh yeah.
Is that like, do like couples invite you over for dinner and say, make us laugh while we're eating?
That's what this is right,
Right.
here. This is listed as private gig.
Right.
That's right, exactly.
Because I see people looking at this going, well, I want to go.
Right.
Doesn't-
Sometimes private gig means I don't have any details yet.
Ah,
I believe our Santa Barbara gig coming up, I didn't have any details, so it might
Oh.
be private gig.
What's
can give
happening
you-
in Santa Barbara?
you guys should all come. The
Comedy-
freeway's open.
Comedy and Knishes, isn't it?
It's
Com-
well,
Comedy
they
and
give-
Knishes.
I
Oh,
love
my
you,
God.
Santa Barbara JCC Jewish Community Center, but they
Yeah.
give their comedy nights names that are just
Comedy and
precious.
Knishes. I'll have
They
the
somehow
Knish.
believe that the name of the show has to be two things with alliteration.
Okay, yeah.
so it'll be
Yeah.
Hanukkah and hilarity.
Oh, yes, that's brilliant.
Yom
know.
Kippur and Yucks.
Exactly. You should work there.
right.
You want to do the flyer?
You can do the flyer.
So it's going to be. We had to actually cancel Hanukkah and Hilarious.
Right.
Sean Polofsky and Tom Clark and his lovely bride.
Yeah.
We had to cancel it due to fire and ash.
Well,
and then we rescheduled
good
it,
reason.
and it's now going to be. I hope there's actually going to be Knishes. So you guys should come. We're going to be
listen,
carpooling.
wherever there's comedy and Knishes, I'm there.
Sound down.
Why
You're like
not?
a Jewish
Either
superhero.
or.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's going to be delicious. And what night is it? February
8th, isn't it?
February 8th in
Two
Santa Barbara
Thursdays,
at the
yeah.
Jewish Community Center on
Very nice.
Chapala. And
I'm sorry, that's Chapala.
so thank you so much for being with us. Bill, any more questions for the cast and crew?
Yeah, Bill.
No, I have. Thank you so much for inviting me to take part. It's been a blast. And if there's anything specific you want me to bring to the table from Nashville next time,
Well, I
by
want to
all
know
means, let
something,
me
Bill.
know.
I want to know because I can't see. What does it say on your sweatshirt?
Canisius?
It says
Conesus.
Conesus Lake.
Canisius Lake. It's actually one of the Finger Lakes.
Yeah, I actually grew up
Right.
right. I grew up like half hour away from Canisius Lake.
Oh,
That's
wow.
right. Bill is a Buffalo boy.
Ah, okay.
Thomas is a Rochester boy.
Rochester.
I'm a Buffalo girl.
Yeah.
And Bill, for next week, I would say maybe get your kids involved in something that is going on with the teenagers and internet.
The kids today, yeah.
That
and that
we
internet,
should,
yes.
like, what appy chats are they using? You know,
That would
these
be good.
kids.
Yeah.
Okay. Can I get one plug in before?
Alex,
Yes.
Please, yes.
I wanted to mention, I just released my stand-up special.
You did. Talk
Oh,
about that.
okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Outraged. It's called, because we're all outraged by everything. So,
Yes.
and it's available on Amazon and iTunes, and I produced it myself. So it's
Nice.
That's really exciting.
Congratulations.
And you guys,
Thank you.
if you
Yeah.
haven't enjoyed the comedy of Tom Clark, you're just going to be completely delighted. This man is so funny,
Oh,
so
thank you.
warm, so entertaining, and he's just the real deal.
Yeah, and I shot, Louise, when I first moved to LA, she had shows out in Santa Barbara at Bricks and Rocks,
Yeah.
and
They
she,
were, yeah.
they're great.
She had you working on bricks and rocks?
Bricks and Rocks
Good
is all like
God.
solid
Slave driver.
building, but
Yeah.
but she helped me out a lot when I was first starting on it, and when I first, because there weren't a lot of gigs that, first of all, paid,
Yeah.
and that were good, and
Yeah.
she really built a nice scene out there.
Nice.
So,
She
In
is a
Santa Barbara.
supporter of the arts and especially comedians.
yeah.
And writers.
Comedians are my favorites.
Yeah.
And musicians and Joe. So, but not Larry.
Anybody named Joe. Yeah.
So we'll put a show together next week. Our guests are going to be Erica Dorning and Greg Cope White, and it's going to be spectacularly funny and fun. And we'll be talking about whatever is going on the internet. If there's something you would like to share with us that's been happening on the internet near you, please send us links and write to us. Things I found online podcast at
Yes.
gmail.com.
Thank you.
Also, find us online, like us, share us, because we are your new favorite podcast and you're our new favorite listener. I'm Louise Palanker. Thanks, Joe Cipriano.
Thank you.
Scott Leslie, Dina Friedman, Tom Clark, John Maddox, Thomas Hubble,
Yes.
Jasper Maddox,
Bill.
and Bill Filipiak.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. From Nashville, representing
Bill.
Canisius Lake. See you next week.